John, how's the world shaping up?
Well, we opened last month. We said it's going to be an interesting year, and I think it's going to go that way. We've seen New Zealand politics open right up. We've seen a recent poll showing that sort of the Maori Manor tie-up seems to be working. We've seen changes inside Labour. We've seen a whole sort of opening for the year of the September election. So it's going to be interesting to see how that opens up as we move forward.
Yeah, the Greens talking about merging and then saying, "Whoops, I didn't mean that."
I think that merging. I think we've seen on the is it left? I'm not sure, but we've seen on the other side where we've got the Greens and Labour demonstrating, what's the word, fiscal responsibility. We're not going to go mad with the chequebook or the borrowing. And we've seen Manor stroke Maori sort of mending their fences and starting to work together on the basis that they could be the kingmakers next time round. We've seen those move up and New Zealand first slip a little. So it's a fluid situation, but in the end, core issues, let's hope core issues drive politics here.
Okay. Cutting to the chase, national housing and water.
It really is. Last month I said it's housing and law and order. I'm now coming to the view that the key issue is going to be housing and water. Water is that sort of, whether it's a false dichotomy or not, the business between, well, we can have an economy or we can have clean rivers. I think we've got to start thinking that
really
maybe isn't really the choice. Maybe there's
seriously?
a broader choice. Well, the issue is that we say we're going to have rivers of a certain level. They're all going to be great by 2040. We just change the standard and see how we measure it. Those issues are I think, going to start to focus a lot of the debate. Let's hope we stay on the issues and not the sort of fake news nonsense that we've seen develop around a lot of the world.
Okay, rate rise?
Rate rise. The Fed, first time in a decade, we've moved up a little. Shows some confidence from the Fed in the US economy. There was some response in the New Zealand dollar. It dropped back a little bit as a result. Maybe another 2 rises this year, which is going to be good for the New Zealand dollar in the sense that it should drop back and be better for exporters. No real changes here. The signals from the Reserve Bank are essentially, we are where we are and we're going to be here for the next 18, 24 months.
Are the banks going to start lending more?
Well, we've seen the opposite happening. The banks are starting to tighten lending criteria. They are feeling overexposed to housing, back to the issues around housing.
And dairying, probably.
And, well, in terms of how, dairying's, it's looking a bit more positive. We're looking at a payout total of around 640. That's probably the 3rd best payout in a decade.
I'm not being negative, but it's predicted to be.
It is predicted to be, and there is always that element
of that one word, predicted.
Predicted is always an issue, but the thing is, at least the prediction is now on the positive side. It's not on the downside. Last dairy auctions or the dairy auctions sequence still isn't strong, but it's better than it's been.
Okay. Tell me about geopolitics.
It's getting complicated, eh? I mean, we've seen North Korea, we've seen the what's the term? We've come to an end of our strategic patience. So the Americans are saying we're no longer going to show this patience towards North Korea. That's a potential flashpoint in that part of the world. We've seen the Americans moving to the dark side of protectionism and China starting to shine through as the new vanguard in terms of promoting international global trade. And that's really an interesting switch in roles. We've seen Premier Liars here this week, and that's going to be quite interesting to see the news flow that comes from the Chinese interaction. Just come out of Australia, so watch what comes out of the Australian discussion too.
And the Dutch went against the right
wing?
Well,
I wouldn't say right wing, but they went against the anti-immigration. The Dutch basically said, no, we're not going the populist route. The indications are that Germany is going to go the same way. They just had a sort of a regional election that rejected that sort of let's get rid of the immigrants type approach, or build a wall approach. Maybe that's the right way to put it. And later next month, about 23rd of April, we've got the French elections, and that'll be another indication of whether we're going to build a wall or whether we're going to recognise that there's a global community we have to stand in.
That obviously leads me straight into Trump.
Well, yeah, Trump is really interesting, eh? I mean, we're going to dump the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare. It's going to go. We've been planning it for 7 years. When we can't get it through, when we fully control Congress, we've got the president wanting it, we've got all of that political alignment, and the deal doer can't do the deal. It's really, really interesting. I think Trump is just learning that you don't run a country like a business. In a business, it's my way or the highway. As a country, it doesn't quite work that way.
He's talking tax reforms as well, though.
Well, we've tried to do healthcare, that doesn't work, so now we're going to do tax reform. Well, tax reforms are just about as complicated as healthcare, so it's going to be interesting to see how that plays through. So we could end up with a protectionist US not actually doing very much.
And as long as he keeps his finger off the red button.
Well, that's not good for any of us, and that goes back to the discussion around North Korea. What's Putin going to do in the Ukraine? These are serious questions.
Okay, what's about our official cash rate? That's being reviewed again.
Last week.
Last week.
So last week it was stable, and the message was we're sort of on a neutral bias, a neutral stance, rather than an easing bias previously. So the Reserve Bank is seeing the economy as stronger, but the signals are no change. So from the Reserve Bank perspective, not a lot's going to happen for the next 18 to 24 months. From terms of the toolbox, debt to income type tools, that's not going to happen this side of the election. That's well clear.
So we can relax.
I wouldn't say we can relax. There's no such thing as a relaxing time. But I mean, the geopolitics aside, the US, the sort of trade issues aside, it's almost steady as she goes. But things can change very quickly.
And this is mainly because of the election that's coming up, and we don't want to sort of muddy the water.
Well, the Reserve Bank just sees that there's not a lot of change passing through. Their big concern is currency. Their problem for currency is we can't drop rates, because if we do, that creates problems with housing. And therefore, we just have to try and talk the currency down, because we can't actually do very much. And we don't have the tools in the toolbox to deal with the housing problem beyond the deposit areas. We don't have the debt to income lever that we really need to target effort in that particular part of the economy.
John, thank you for unravelling, as you always do.